Path, Bolt, Chain Lightning, Sylvan Library. Pretty traditional zoo deck. So, alright, so for those of you just joining us, I'm Gavin Verhey. I'm here with Jacob Van Lunen. This is round 4 of the Star City Games Open Series here in Louisville, Kentucky. Earlier today, we saw Cobblade take down the standard portion of the tournament. Here we're about to see the home stretch, not the home stretch, the mid-stretch of Legacy unfold. On your right, a previous Open champion, Jesse Hatfield, playing not High Tide. He's like, too many mental missteps. I'm just going to play straight up Zoo.
Yeah, I mean, I like his deck choice.
I think Zoo is good. Very traditional Zoo. On the left-hand side, Chris Van Meter playing almost the same deck he played last week and won with, is take on Team America. No Stifles, added Vendilion Clicks over Tombstalkers, playing a couple spicy one-ups, Pernicious Seed, Explosive, some other Dark Blast. Who do you think has the edge here?
I don't know, it's got to be pretty close. I'd say that Jesse's got to have an edge here. Like, the Team America deck is, like, much more well-positioned against, like, the general, like, absurdity that Legacy is capable of. But Jesse's deck is better at playing a fair game, which is what this match is going to be. This match isn't one person trying to be unfair and the other person, like, knocking them down to reality. This match is going to be two people playing fair. And that's clearly going to favor the deck who doesn't do very well when their opponent's trying to be unfair. So,
and of course, when we say fair in Legacy, we mean, you know, the old 4-5 on turn 1, the old 3-3.
Yeah, the old 4-5 on turn 1. That's fair.
Yeah.
We're talking about Corbat where you can storm out and kill people on turn 1.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy what passes for fair these days. But that is the case. Step Links is a really important card, actually. I don't think a lot of people would play with this. So Step Links in Zoo, a lot of people don't have Step Links. But I was talking to Arilax about this, who's played a ton of Storm combo, played a ton of High Tide. And he's like, the way you beat the High Tide and Storm decks is if you play with Step Links, you can be one turn faster than them sometimes. Storm, not always. You might be one turn too slow. But against High Tide especially...
You can turn 3 people with this deck, like, regularly. You're playing 8 Lightning Bolts. Like,
I mean, and Step Links is like easily 8 damage on its own on turn 1.
Yeah.
Now, you can take the deck a step further and play a Burn Zoo deck with the Rift Bolts, Fire Blasts, but, you know, this is just a more traditional Zoo deck. But Step Links is definitely a card a lot of people aren't playing in their Zoo decks that has proven to be pretty good in Ari's testing, and I imagine is also pretty good here. Only 3 Neither Reliquaries, important to note from Jesse Hatfield's list.
All right, so I believe Jesse's on the play here, right? Oh, no, Chris was on the play. Okay. Chris leads off with the Thoughtseize. Drops down to 18, and Jesse shows him a Zoo hand. I don't know if that's what Chris was expecting. Jesse's hand's actually not good.
What do you? I mean, Goyf is a really strong card, but no 1-drop is pretty astounding for me because the 1-drops are so important to that deck.
I feel like you kind of need like a 1-drop or a library in your opener, right?
It should be noted, and as several pointed out on Twitter, this is true that Jesse is, of course, no stranger to Zoo decks. Him and Alex played Zoo before they ever played, you know, High Tide. But, you know, they pioneered the lists quite a bit. But I still don't like that keep 5 lands double Tarmogoyf.
I do not like that keep at all.
I mean, if you ever draw another land, you're just so far behind.
Yeah, I mean, like every land, one of the lands in your hand is already a dead card.
Yeah, exactly.
And then every one you draw after that's a dead card.
Plus, I mean...
Like, Zoo's a deck where you want to be keeping, like, 2 landers, not a deck where you want to be keeping 5 landers.
Having a 1-land, like, having a 1-drop is so crucial, especially, he must know what Chris is playing here, because, I mean, he can pretty much assume...
I mean, you can assume that, like, if you win a tournament with a deck 1 week, when, like, you come back the next week, you're not going to just, like, switch it up.
I mean, some people might do that, but...
I'm the only idiot who does that.
But... Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the hand. Yeah, I think he's drawn 2 or 3 more lands now. I think his hand might just be all lands.
No, he's another Reliquary.
Oh, he's got another Reliquary. Didn't we just see the lands deck play last round? That deck didn't have as many lands in its hand.
Yeah, Jesse has significantly more lands in his hand than the lands player we saw the round before ever had in his hand. So.
All right, so there's the vanilla. Look at that. You just plop down 5 lands, Neither Reliquary for Jesse Hatfield, and you just take the knight, right?
Yeah, I guess I'll take your knight. Yeah, and this is just
So So, man, the only reason I think you would keep a double Tarmogoyf hand is if you just had some kind of read about a different deck choice, but you knew what Chris was playing. Maybe in like a Zoom Mirror, maybe you would want double Tarmogoyf, but even then, I don't know, 5 lands. Regardless, it's what happened, so Jesse stuck with it.
Canopy.
Just cracks Canopy.
It's a chain laning that'll be used to take down that V-click. But I think Jesse's actually going to need a mental misstep when he attempts to do that.
Yeah, there's that, and yeah, I expect to see a mental misstep here. Oh, maybe not. Maybe you just say the misstep in case he draws a 1-drop. Is click that important? Or you're not going to win with that click, right?
I think you are. I don't know. I think it's important. Like,
so it does go for the misstep.
Yeah, I would go for it.
It just seems like there's enough 1-drops in Jesse's deck that right now he's not doing anything. The only way he's going to win is if he, gets some good creatures out.
But I mean, Chris's deck kind of like plays like a similar game. Like he's just playing guys and cards. Like it's not like he has to draw one of his 3 chases to accrue like any sort of card advantage. So like if they go to a long game, it doesn't necessarily favor either player.
Or Dark Confidant.
That's true, Dark Confidant also. But Dark Confidant's kind of a liability when you're playing against Burn too. So I like Confidant may even get like boarded out in this matchup.
Dark Confidant is one of my favorite cards against Zoo decks. Everyone always boards their Confidants out. I think it's one of the best kept secrets in Magic that keeping them in against beatdown decks is pretty good. Because a lot of the time, like the extra cards is how you're going to beat those decks.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely true if you're playing a lot of cheap spot removal.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I can agree. Chris does not have a ton of cheap spot removal, but you got to find the spot removal you have somehow. And you can find Dark Blast.
And plus, he does like Ghastly Demise and stuff. So if he's bringing in Ghastly Demises and Submerges, and an extra Smother, then I could totally see leaving in the Bobs. Maybe you take out. I don't know what you take out here. I guess you take out Force of Will for sure. That card is not good here.
Alright, so it cracks in with click all the way down to 9. So Jesse's sitting at 9 life. Jesse still has not done much of anything.
Yeah.
Kept the hand of 2 Tarmogoyfs, 5 lands. Not quite good enough.
He attempted to cast a single spell, which was mental misstepped. Jesse would currently be losing to a draft deck.
Yeah, seriously. We got Goblin Gavaliering him and
just get him.
So Jesse cracks some fetch lands there.
So he has a Savannah, a Taiga, and a Plateau. The trifecta of zoo lands. All right, let's see what he has here. All right, he has a Wild Nicottle. Now, Wild Nicottle is probably the best 1-drop available in the deck.
Yeah, or Steplinks, arguably. I mean,
both those cards. I mean, it's a turn 1 3/3 or a turn 1 potential 4/5.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's gonna be. Wow! Look at this mana base: 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I guess there's only 10 fetch lands. It's actually not that many. Yeah, Steplinks actually isn't as insane in this build. Yeah, turn Wild Nicottle is probably better. Turn 6, 7 Wild Nicottle, not quite as exciting.
Not quite as exciting at all, no.
And that's a brainstorm from Chris Van Meter there.
And that should. Brainstorm's a pretty good card when you have a lot of lands in your hand.
And passes back. Jesse draws another land.
That's just crazy.
So
How many lands is Jesse playing even? He's got...
he has 4 Horizon Canopies, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. He has 8, 17, 19, 20. He's playing 23 lands. It's reasonable. It's actually like a little high on the land count, considering... Now, both these players are 3-0.
Attention Magic players. We are still taking signups for this afternoon's 2-headed tournament. If you'd like to get signed up, please come on over to the Signup area and sign up with my good friend Miss Kelly Anderson. She'd be more than happy to take you sign up.
Assessing they're undefeated. They probably are. So they are.
Yeah, these guys are almost certainly undefeated.
Alright, so...
Path Exhaletron from Jesse. That will deal with the click, but... Now Nicottle serves in for 3. Neither player just have anything going on. It's actually kind of... This is one of the weirdest matches of Legacy I've been seen played in a while.
Yeah, I mean,
because I mean, Chris's draw wasn't that great either. He expended a lot of resources
I think
earlier.
Chris just casts the Force and wins. I mean, he doesn't know that the Force will just win the game for him, but yeah, he wins. Just is gonna pack.
I mean, he has. It's what a weird. That was a weird game.
Yeah, it's a very weird game. Chris is probably like, okay, cool.
Chris Van Meter's actually, he used to live in Seattle, and I knew him way back when, and then he moved away, and I had hadn't heard from him in years, and then one day I look and he's like top 8ing Star City Opens everywhere. So, for doing SCG Live, I flew out to some of the events to hang out with, or fly to these events to commentate obviously, but I saw him and hung out with him a little bit, and he's a really great guy, and I'm really happy to see that he's doing well at these tournaments.
Yeah, I just met Chris recently, and he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a really good guy. He's fun to talk to, hang out with.
Good, he's a good guy, and he's been a great
fellow Dutchman.
Really great. He's been playing really tight. Like, he's done really well in several of these opens, especially this deck. The Team America deck has been treating him very nicely.
Yeah, I mean, Chris has been putting out insane performances in Legacy. So, I mean, Chris's performance last week puts him into the range for 2 buys, and when you have 2 buys at these events, the tournament gets a lot easier. So if you're willing to really dedicate yourself to the Star City Games Open Series, you can start traveling to all the events, and the better you do, the more rewards you start getting. For example, like we have players like Alex Bertensini and Jerry Thompson and Edgar Flores and AJ Soccer, and they're all max level now, so whenever a new set of Magic comes out, they get 4 of every card in that new set.
And then top it all off, whenever they go to an event, $250.
Yeah, they get $250 just to show up to a Star City Open weekend. So, pretty awesome. And
of course, it's all that much easier to top it with the buys, so it's...
Yeah, and the more you play, the more of those you get.
Yep. So I mean, and just fly out, like, honestly, like, if I wasn't commentating on these, I would be flying around the circuit and doing a lot of what AJ was doing, because it's... AJ, Jerry, all those guys, like, it's worked out really well, and the tournaments are just really fun, and if you have the dedication, you can do well, and it's, new players like Edgar Flores, I mean, not new, but, up-and-coming players like Edgar Flores.
Oh, he's new. He's started playing, like, less than 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean...
He's been playing for, like 18 months.
Sure, I mean, so like, relatively new, but...
Just masterful.
But, like, yeah, just came up and rose through the circuit. That could be you, but if you can't make it out to an open series, there are invitational qualifiers all throughout the country, so check those out, starcitygames.com/IQ. The winner of an invitational qualifier gets to go to the invitational, happening in 2 weeks. Tons of money being given out as prizes, more than a Grand Prix. I'll be there commentating, Jacob Van Loon will be there battling, and it should be a really fun time. There's also, of course, the super qualifiers happening too, and if you win one of those, it's like $500 for first place. There's a grand, there's a grand given out in those, so all kinds of cool stuff. It's just a great circuit, absolutely phenomenal. It's really inspired just its own.
Yeah, and if you're not into Legacy, and like you can come out for Saturday and play Standard, and then on Sunday there's a draft open.
Yeah.
And the draft opens have excellent prize support. You get to play against great players, and I mean, you just get to draft. Drafting in a tournament setting, like besides your local shop, is actually a really interesting experience. So, these Star City Games draft opens are going to be an excellent experience for you if you're planning on going to a limited Grand Prix. Because I remember my first day 2 at a limited Grand Prix, and I was terrified. I had nothing, like, even though I'd been drafting for years and years and years, the difference of drafting at your local shop and having like as much time as you want, and like looking through your deck while you're drafting and all of that stuff, versus drafting when you have time constraints and you're not allowed to look at the cards you drafted, and everybody's doing everything in sync. Those things are very, very hard to like learn quickly, and if you come to these events and you get to play in those draft opens, you get to like learn how that works. You get to get used to it, and the more comfortable you get with that, the better you're able to like adapt to those situations and do well. And
not even Magic Online can prepare you for that, because on Magic Online you can see your picks, and you kind of put yourself at a disadvantage if you don't want to do it. Yeah, you can train, I guess, by not looking at your picks, but really nothing. As someone who's like played in a lot of draft events, like you can't. There's nothing compares to sitting down at a table with 8 people. You have like judges all around you. You have people announcing over the microphone. 40 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 seconds. Make your pick, and you have to get used to that. Otherwise, it can be terrifying. And this is a great way to do it. The cards are even stamped. It feels just like you're at a Pro Tour. In the meantime, Jesse Hatfield seems to have kept a much more aggressive hand this game. Cracks the fetch line on the first turn.
Two-headed giant sealed. If you are interested in playing two-headed giant today,
come on up to the
Alright,
main
Jesse
event
grabs
stage,
a
talk to
Taiga,
Callie. We're going to be
and
firing that off in just a
that
couple of
means
minutes.
his one drop is probably going to be a Lavamancer or a
Nicottle.
Wild Nicottle if he has one.
Nicottle is the one he wants.
Nicottle is certainly the one he wants. Cat Warrior. Alright, it's a 2-2 in play right now.
So
and next
good.
turn he's going to attack for 3.
And remember the days when you had to work to get like Jackal Pup? You're like, well, I'll play my 4 Jackal Pups. I hope I draw my Jackal Pups every game. And now it's like a Lightning. Nobody's
Yeah,
gonna
you
play
just
with
have
that.
infinite of those things.
So Inquisition of Kozilek from Chris Van Meter sees Blue Elemental Blast, Gaddock, Teague, and or no, that was Heath. Blue Elemental Blast and Path to Exile. Is that it?
Yeah.
So
I think it's just a Reb and a a Reb and a
Or sorry,
Path.
Red Elemental Blast,
Yeah.
not Blue Elemental Blast.
That's okay.
List.
Everybody knew
Obviously
you,
on the
man.
blue.
Yeah, obviously
it's
just
the
as
one.
that
It's the one that kills blue things.
Yes.
It is blast the blue elementals. Makes more sense. So I guess Jesse's hand. I mean, it had the Nicottle, but didn't have any
I mean,
creatures
it's a
past
4-lander
that.
again.
Looks like he drew a Swords there.
Yeah.
Cracks in for 3. Drops Chris down to
Gets
17.
Chris down to 17, and he's forced to pass without applying any more pressure onto the board.
Oh, so many lands.
Chris has multiples of Brainstorm in his hand. It's never a bad thing.
No, I mean, Chris, man, the thing about the Zoo deck is that it has to get pressure down fast against decks like Chris's with Team America. And yeah, you can win longer games, but you want to have the fast creatures, and they're just so crucial. And if you don't have that, you can just wreck your opponent's hand and deal with their creatures, and then stabilize that you 10-ish your life and take control of the game. And here you see right here, Chris is hemming away Jesse. Now, granted, gonna hit 2 lands more than likely.
Now Jesse's it's just like Jesse kept a really, really good 5-card hand.
It's like, well, I had him roll to 5.
Which is about just as good as the 7-card hand that he did keep.
Yes. Search for 3 with Wild Nicottle. Drops Chris Van Meter down to 13 life.
Yeah, and that Wild Nicottle does some work.
Yeah, I mean, a 3
Such
for
an
3
early
do that.
Early turn of the game.
I
it's
remember
already-
Brian Kowal was testing Zoo, like versus Zoo for the Pro Tour after Wild Nicottle came out, Pro Tour Berlin, and he found that he just kept track, and the games where you had Wild Nicottle on turn 1 as opposed to the games where you had a 2/2 on turn 1 were demonstrably different in the results. That extra point of damage, the 3 lightning bolt, makes a gigantic difference in the end game. And
Yeah.
yep, there's engineered explosives. Good answer to Wild Nicottle.
And he's going to pass the turn with that explosives up. It's better to do it that way. You never know if when your opponent has like a Goblin Guide or something like that, you can just prevent them from getting you.
Right. I mean, the other thing you can do is you can just take 3 more damage and pass the turn and then crack it in their end step to make sure he doesn't play any more 1-drops this turn.
That is another play you can make.
That, because otherwise, like, you can crack right here, then he plays another Nicottle. I think that's what he's doing. Yeah, it looks like Chris is taking 3, and then he'll end step crack the explosives.
That makes sense. We know it's in Jesse's hand. I mean, Jesse's deck does have a large glut of 1-drops, so that makes sense. Chris is going to go ahead and grab a Tropical Island.
Yep. And then things are going to go
Assemble
boom.
the Team America trifecta, the UC, Trop, and Bayou. All right, Chris pops the engineered explosives, and Wild Nicottle hits the bin.
Oh, pernicious
Ooh,
deed.
indeed. That's a good
Very
card in
nice.
this matchup.
And Chris has a lot of 1-of removal spells, so he can draw quite several different mixes of them. And there's a Brainstorm. 1.
And let's see. 2.
I think has that been Dillian click you put back on top? Click Bayou.
Click Bayou.
There's Polluted Delta.
Yep. And he's going to pass over. He doesn't want that second click, he already has one. And during Jesse's draw step, he's going to go ahead, shuffle away the other click. And I'm not sure he wanted to shuffle away the other click. I mean, he knows Jesse has a path in his hand. I think you can assume that Jesse's probably going to path or V-click when you cast it during his upkeep.
And there's the V-click. Gonna target. Alright, just let's it resolve. And he sees Choke, Path, Bolt, Swords, Steplings. Wow, what do you think you take here if you're Chris Van Meter? Like, if that Choke resolves this turn, the game is... It is going to be rough. But he doesn't have another land yet. Oh, he takes the choke.
I like that. It's fine.
Chris had a virtual 5 from that lightning bolt, or if the bolt can just take out the Vendelian Click. There's step links.
And Jesse drew another step links. So,
There's a red open to both if you want.
ooh, this is just about the best answer you could have. Here we go, Chris Van Meter. Dark Blast.
Wow. Now that also means up his next step links too.
Yep. But Jesse's almost certainly going to bolt this. I guess he probably. I think he's thinking that he wants to save the bolt for face.
I mean, as long as he keeps the bolt, Chris is at a virtual 5 life.
Yeah, and I mean he is a deck with a good amount of reach. It's not unreasonable to think that you're going to get there that way.
And he has both the swords and the path in his hand, so he has plenty of other ways to deal with.
And he drew another bolt,
Click.
so now Chris set a virtual 2.
Huh. So he could get 2 points of damage in. As long as he doesn't use that swords, Chris is more or less at a virtual 2. We'll see how it ends up working out. The other problem is he has to kind of play around discard too. Like, there's this weird situation where you might start bolting before he's dead, just so you don't get discarded by them, or you don't get hit by discard. I mean, it's a interesting situation, but all right. So Jesse plays nothing, just passes the turn. Chris is going to brainstorm in Jesse's end step. Yeah, that card is just everywhere.
It's the best card.
Learn how to play it well, you learn how to master brainstorm, and doing legends who do a lot. AJ Soccer has a great article, if you look in his archives, on how to play brainstorm.
I love playing with brainstorm. It's one of the most intricate cards ever. It wasn't even intended to be as complex as it is, I'm sure. It's
yeah, I mean,
the most complex, interesting card.
Complex and powerful too, right?
Yeah.
But really,
complex, interesting, powerful, skill intensive.
And the funny part is, Path to Exile happens here on the Vendelian Click. None of that really happened until Onslaught when the fetch lands came out. Before that, it was whatever. But
it was good.
Yeah, but post fetch land, that's when things really changed.
Oh yeah, that brought it to a whole new level.
Yeah,
it was no longer just used to dodge targeted discard and fix your hand a little bit. Now you got an actual reliable way to shuffle with it.
Yeah. And there's Inquisition Chris Van Meter. Dark Confidant.
And that's so strong because what's going to happen here is that Chris is going to get to take one of those bolts.
Yep. So basically gains 3 life in the process.
Yep. Healing Solve is quite good in this spot.
And Chris also has Dark Confidant in his hand too, and I'm sure he'd love to play that.
Yeah, I mean, Confidant is somewhat of a liability.
I mean, certainly a liability, but it's also a good way for Chris to push ahead. Plus, he has Dark Blast, so if he really starts getting worried, he can dredge Dark Blast if he wants. It's definitely one of those situations where you're but I mean, in these situations, Cedric Phillips told me just always be a man, so I just go for it. But that was his biggest advice to me. He's like, Gavin, whenever you're playing Magic, just always be a man. Or woman, if that's your thing, that's cool too.
Yeah.
But just go for it if you have to, because now he's basically just stuck with that Dark Confidant in his hand. It's never going to do anything. He knows he's at a virtual 5 life, but he probably boarded out his forces. And you could just filter through extra lands that way. He knew what was on top with Brainstorm, I guess, but yep, there's a Confidant. It's
nice.
Probably because he knew it was on top and didn't want to take it from damage, but
it's reasonable. Now, it's funny that I hear people say all the time that they were taught to just play like people don't have it and everything, which is funny because I actually learned how to play and still do play in a very different manner. I play around everything.
Yeah, that's how Martin used the plays too. That's what I pretty well for him.
Yeah, I literally just play around everything.
And so real fast there, you see Swords of Plowshares on Dark Confidant showing just how worried Jesse is, even some players would be like, oh, well, Dark Confidant, sweet, my opponent's going to die quicker. Just no, you got to get that rid of that. Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting how, I think it's really interesting how there's so many different schools of thought in high-level Magic, and people, some people are always go for it, some people are always be cautious, and they're all very good players,
Yeah, I mean, there are just different ways you can approach the game.
They just have different mindset. Like Martin Yuza, like is like, no, I'll play around everything, and you know, people like LSV and Jerry, they tend to, or Jerry tends to play around everything too. LSV is like, oh, I'll just go for it.
Yeah, Jerry definitely plays around everything.
Yeah.
We have a similar play style, only he is much better than I am.
Submerge off the top for Chris Van Meter. I guess it's fortunate for Chris that Jesse killed his Dark Confidant. Otherwise, that Submerge would have dealt them 5. Some people point out on Twitter that the original fetch is comboed with Brainstorm from Mirage, the old school Badlands, Rocky Tar Pit.
Oh, yes.
Grasslands, or Grasslands, not Badlands. It's true. That was
Mirage fetches.
The Mirage fetch, that was a thing. I mean, it really started. I mean, yes, that was played, but really with Onslaught, I feel is when it started to become really dominant.
Chris Van Meter's top card got flipped. I don't think he saw it.
No. Yeah, I think it's just probably gonna be a warning.
Yeah, was his deck randomized? I believe it was, right? There was nothing put on the bottom or anything. It had been
no preordains in this format. Let's see. I'm looking at his deck
Brainstorm.
list. Yeah,
I mean, but I think that he did not brainstorm that card at the top. So.
Yeah, he brainstormed and it was like Submerge, and he did it in his end step, so he drew 1, left Submerge on top, or left not Submerge, left the card before Submerge on top. Yeah, I don't think he knew what any of the cards were.
All right, so.
Jesse Hatfield still on 2 lands.
Both players.
Still that. But once again, this is a very weird game.
Yeah. Very weird game again. And I mean, this is kind of like, this is how these matchups get, though. You know, like, one person both people just kill everything the other player plays, and they're both just completely out of threats, and you're just waiting to draw the top card. Like a zoo-on-zoo matchup, 2 of the fastest decks, so you'd expect the match to end instantly, but it actually takes so long, because you're constantly killing each other's guys, and nobody has anything in play, and you're waiting for, like, one person to, like, get that last point in.
Yeah, in the zoo matchup, it's often right to go on the draw, just because every card is so important.
Players in the Two-Headed Giant sealed event, please come to the main event stage. Your event is starting. Two-Headed Giant sealed event, you come to the main stage.
Alright, let's see. I think that's a choke in Jesse Hatfield's hand. So if he can get Chris to tap his lands, that choke can come down and potentially ruin Chris's day. So there's this. Now Chris is going to probably submerge that Stepplinks in response. Like, he can't afford to take the damage here. Like, I mean, like, he can afford to take 2, but
he's only going to take 2.
But he doesn't know Jesse doesn't have another land.
That's true.
So he'll take the 2 from Stepplinks, so wisely.
I think he just lets choke resolve. He has 6 lands now. Is it really that big of a deal?
Well, it certainly can be a big deal, because I mean, it means 3 of those lands are 1 use. I don't know, like, whenever I'm playing blue deck, it doesn't matter how many lands I have, choke resolving is bad because you want to be able to cast your spells. Now in Legacy things are different, things are a lot cheaper, but it also locks him out of blue, and he's going to need his blue mana to cast it like cards like Vendelion Click. So Jesse opts for Knight, not choke.
Okay. So now we have...
It's a good submerged target.
It's a pretty juicy submerged target there. Now, that submerge from Chris is going to double time walk Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, the submerge will be awesome, but I mean, not going to pull the trigger on it yet, probably on his turn, right? After he draws. Because it's free, so no reason, it's a common thing.
Turn. I mean, I guess, like, a lot of people think, like, it's better to do that type of thing, like, on your turn here, because, like, Jesse may get, like, flustered by the fact that it may have been top decked, supposedly.
I mean, it's also just changes what information you have. Like, every time, like, the biggest one for me was with Umezawa's GT, it would have, like, 2 counters on it, right? And they'd be like, well, end of your turn, kill your creature, untap, do something. And it's like, well, I mean, what you draw probably won't change what you do, but it's...
You never know.
You never know. Like, it's good to just draw a card. Maybe something happens, right? Maybe you get a different read on your opponent from after you draw. Obviously, if you have a good reason for doing it on their turn, that's one thing. But, like, if it's gonna be the same thing on your turn as their turn, you can just do it on your turn when it's a free effect. I also think people just do stuff on their opponent's turn too often. Like, brainstorming on your opponent's turn, usually it's right to brainstorm on your turn a lot of the time, I find.
Yeah. I agree.
Alright, so that Knight, he did not submerge the Knight. It's going to be a time to submerge it here. Waited for Jesse to attack. And that Knight is pretty large.
Yeah, he's coming in. He goes to the gym. Whole deal. All right, Submerge.
Submerge
and
it is.
Knight's gonna hop onto the top.
Submerge is what a beating of a card. It just
Such a
sets you
blowout.
back so far in a format with fetch lands. It's actually one of the biggest cards on not on Magic Online that really changes how things work. Alex Bertoncini says he can't play Merfolk on Magic Online just because Submerge doesn't exist on there yet, which really changes things. So
I mean, how do you beat a green deck, Merfolk, if you don't have Submerge? But if you do have Submerge, how do you lose to a green deck as Merfolk? It's so crazy.
There's a choke from Jesse Hatfield, so it looks like choke is gonna resolve, and Chris
doesn't have an answer for it. He only has Mental Misstep in his hand.
Chris is gonna have to use his 4 blue lands extremely wisely.
Now Chris is going to get to Ghastly Demise this Night of the Reliquary.
Okay, so be very careful to tap a non-blue land.
Yep.
So Knight goes away. Now choke is so he dredges Dark Blast, so he can kill the Step Links. Flips Misty Rainforest, Mental Misstep. Pretty good dredge by Chris Nanometer.
I mean, he wrote everything he needed to.
And he still has Mental Misstep
they're
in his hand.
back to parity again.
Yeah. There's a Wild in the Coddle. Now, I think you have to misstep that. The question is, do you tap a blue mana and pay 2 life? You tap a blue probably, right?
Yeah. I mean, you basically stone rain yourself to do it. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, you have plenty of lands at this point. You can afford to use one on that. That's pretty important.
And I mean, his other 2 lands are still going to untap. He's still got 5 mana there.
Brainstorm. Okay. And Chris even has the fetch land to combo with it if he's willing to go down to 6 life. He might not be willing to do that, though. Especially because he knows about the potential to get bolted out.
I think you still have to go for it, though. I don't know. Like, you can't just put 2 lands on top.
Alright. Brainstorm, plays the fetch lands. Taps 2 for Tarmogoyf. Okay, that's a good way for him to close.
That's a very good way for him to close.
The aggressive creature turned controlling creature turned everyone's creature, Tarmogoyf. And of course, the fun game of how big is Tarmogoyf. That's the one thing I hate about Tarmogoyf the most is every time you play, everyone looks through their graveyards. How big is it?
Yeah.
You know, one turn later, I forgot how big was it. Like we played a spell. How big is it?
Let's count again.
It's if they knew it was going to be that powerful, I don't know that I don't know, it might have changed somehow. But you know, obviously they just had no idea.
I mean, wasn't it originally supposed to cost 3 mana?
It was originally supposed to cost 3 mana, yeah. And I think it was also originally a 0/0, if I remember correctly. I don't remember that article perfectly, but it was definitely, it cost 3 originally. Which might be okay, but it certainly wouldn't be nearly as good as it is at 2.
I don't think it would even see play.
Really?
At 3? I think the difference between 2 and 3 is just like so massive.
I agree.
That
I mean, can't spell snare it on 3, but yeah, I agree that it's a massive difference. I think it might have still seen some play somewhere.
it probably would have seen some, like in standard, but it would not be like the legacy vintage stable that it's become.
The 1 mana shave is a big deal. So in the meantime, Jesse Hatfield plays a Step Links. Looks like Chris cracked that fetch land. And now his 3 lands locked down by the choke. Serves with the Tarmogoyf. I'm guessing it's a 5, I want to say. Let's see. Land, creature, instant, sorcery, and explosives, right? So that's 5, so that's artifact to say? No planeswalkers.
Alright, Jason's going to pop this Horizon Canopy now. Let's see what he gets off that.
There's a Goyf of his own.
Goyf.
So now I can play the defensive Goyf game.
Goyfs bounce off each other, but there are a few cards that let you break serve. Cards like Noble Hierarch are very good at that.
Anthony Jones,
Cards
please
like
come
Jit.
to Minimum Stage. Anthony Jones, please come to
the,
Minimum Stage.
Cards like Dark Blast are very good at that also.
Dark Blast is very good. One of the biggest tricks you could actually do with the deck, Submerge, also pretty good about that.
Yep.
A big trick you could do with the deck was, not in this version because he cut them, but you could Tombstalker, you could attack, have them block, and then Tombstalker cards out of your graveyard, and then both Goyfs would die. It's kind of an interesting trick. But Chris submerges away that Tarmogoyf. So he lets Jesse draw the Tarmogoyf again, instead of waiting until after he draws to submerge it. I mean, he doesn't want him to attack back, and he probably doesn't want him to find a bolt or something either. So he attacks with Tarmogoyf there, Jesse chooses to block because he has to.
Yeah, and the Dark Blast.
Dark Blast eats it alive.
Eat him.
There's the Dark Blast. That Charm Wave goes down. And now Chris has the Dark Confidant in his hand. He just has to decide if he wants to play it or not. And I don't think you do. You don't want to accidentally. This is the point where it's okay to not be a man.
Yeah, exactly.
like you if you play it, he still knows Jesse has a bolt, right? Jesse still has a bolt, or did he use it somewhere along the way?
I believe Jesse does still have a bolt.
Yeah, he still has a bolt. Like you don't want to. You played it. You don't want to accidentally flip a Vendilion click and lose. All right, so he bolts the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, I guess he kind of knows Jesse's going to pull that Goyf too, though. I guess not really. Jesse could just bolt his face and hope he flips a 3, right?
There's this. I mean, that's kind of a loose hope, I guess. You could probably figure out who's going to bolt that Goyf. Let's see what he flips. Yeah. Go for the Throat. Chris drops to 4 life. Go for the Throat. Does not immediately help him. He needs to draw his card for the turn too, right?
Yeah.
Bonus card.
Bonus.
Feels so good. That's another Tarmogoyf. It's a good one to have.
It's a good bonus.
Now, all Chris has to do is not die. I see it. That's a red card he drew. That's a red elemental blast, I believe.
Yeah, it's a red.
That's it.
And
Whoa.
Jesse shakes the hand.
Whoa. He didn't wait for see what Chris flipped with Dark Confidant? Like, if he flips with Jace, he just dies. Like, he probably didn't leave Jace in, but if he did, like, would you want to see that last bit of information?
Yeah, I would kind of want to see that.
Oh, well, I mean...
Let's, should we see if we can get Chris over here to talk to us for a bit?
Yeah, I mean, Chris is a good man to talk to. We'll have him over here, see what he thinks. Yeah, he could have flipped with a Submerge, or a lot of cards could have flipped on that last turn. And actually, that's funny, I was just talking with Zane Begg back in Seattle about this the other day, about how people just concede all the time